Alrighty, welcome back. So the first step of building systems is to understand what we are doing already. And we all have a system for our content creation or for whatever processes we're doing in our creatorpreneur business. It's just that if it's not down on paper, it's probably somewhere in our heads and we need to get it down on paper. Now, my old housemate, Sheen, who is now a YouTuber, having taken the part-time YouTuber Academy, plug, used to work at Oxford Business School, and she used to run a program called Map the System, and that is where the title of this lesson comes from. And it was basically a program to help figure out how sustainable societal change can happen in different places. And the first step of that was to map the system, figure out what are the things that are already being done. And if you watch the previous lesson that we had about planning, I told you about this business coach, Liam, who I met outside the hospital one day. And I told you at the time, in that lesson, how the very first thing we did when we had our unofficial business coaching session was do that annual planning type stuff and come up with a 12-month plan and a 3-month plan. But the second thing that we did was map the system. And this was another thing that completely blew my mind. And it's just such a standard part of business stuff. But again, having spoken to a bunch of creators who are from 0 to 10 million plus subscribers and having taught over 1,500 students for our YouTuber Academy, there are so few creators that actually think in terms of systems, in terms of content production systems or course production systems or podcast production systems or whatever that thing is that they are trying to produce. And basically what we want to do in this lesson when we're mapping our system is to draw boxes and a flowchart for how we actually create stuff. So this is what a rough flowchart looks like for YouTube video production. And this is basically what we created on a piece of paper when I was first working with Liam. And so the way it worked was that Liam asked me, okay, I want you to draw out what your process for creating videos looks like. And I drew something like, okay, well, you film the video, then you edit the video, then you publish the video. It's not that hard. I don't know why this is at all relevant. And then what he said is that, no, okay, so what is the thing that comes before filming? What is the step before filming? I was like, I guess setting up the cameras. And he was like, oh no, setting up the cameras, we can kind of badge into the filming step. What comes before then for a single video that you need to make? And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I guess, well, actually before filming a video, we need to be able to have written the video, for example. So there is a write stage that comes in sort of scripting the video or bullet pointing it. I'm not really a fan of scripting word for word. I script for bullet points, but there is definitely a writing stage that comes before filming. And then the next thing he said was, okay, what comes before writing for an individual YouTube video? And I said, okay, well, I guess if you think of it that way, then the thing that comes before writing is idea generation. And then he asked, is there anything that comes before idea generation? I was like, no, I'm pretty sure idea generation is the first step. You come up with the idea for a video, then you write the bullet points for the script of that video. Then at some point you sit down and film the video. Then that video goes to editing and then that video gets published. And he said, okay, cool. Does anything come after publishing? And at the time I was like, oh, okay, cool. I guess after publishing, some of our videos we repurpose into tweets and blog posts and that kind of thing. And then he asked, does anything else come after repurposing? And then I said, well, I guess in theory, we do have a stage after publishing where we look at analytics and we see how well the video performed and what are the insights we can learn from that video. In theory, I wasn't really doing it very much because I didn't really have the time to go that deep into analytics. And then once I saw this thing written out and I said, oh, and I guess analytics in a way kind of inform idea generation for the next video and sort of also help inform writing, because if a video is doing well on the stats, then it's a sign that, ooh, this topic is resonating with the audience. Potentially we can make more videos around this topic. And so this was the very basic kind of map the system that we did when I first started working with Liam in terms of what does the video production process look like. And then the next thing that Liam asked was like, okay, we've got what the system looks like. I want you to now give me an idea of how much time you're spending across each of these different aspects of your system on a week-to-week basis. And I said to him, look, Liam, my weeks are different. I've got on calls, I've got shifts at the hospital. Sometimes I'm off, sometimes I'm on. He was like, I don't care. Just on average, roughly in a normal week, how much time are you spending on each of these different bits of the system? And I said, okay, fine. So I guess editing is the thing that takes the most time. And I spend around about 12 hours per week editing. I said, filming takes quite a lot of time. I spend about 3 hours per week filming kind of stuff. This is including vlogs, including live streams, all that stuff. And it's also including a bunch of time sort of setting up cameras and taking down cameras. So that adds an hour to the process. So all that's included in the 3 hours. Maybe I spend around 1 hour per week doing writing. The fact that I don't script my videos word for word means that it's fairly easy to write them in bullet points, but I do spend an hour a week doing writing. I spend around about 10 minutes per week on idea generation because I don't have too much time for it. Maybe it takes me about 20 minutes a week to publish content, and at that point I think about titles and thumbnails. By the way, this is a bad thing to do. We should be thinking of titles and thumbnails in the idea generation stage, but I only learned that later on. And I spend absolutely 0 minutes per week on repurposing, and maybe 1 minute per week looking at analytics, just very top of line glancing at YouTube Studio. And when I saw this all written down, I had a real profound moment of realization where I was like, damn, I've never quite realized how much time I was spending on this YouTube stuff. I always just thought, oh, it's a few hours here and there each evening, but that really did add up to around 16 hours per week. And 75% of that time was spent editing and also filming 3 hours a week, producing like one 20-minute video a week. Why is it taking 3 hours to film a 20-minute video? I also realized as I was talking to Liam about this, like he asked, what are the areas in which you personally would like to spend more time? And I said, I'd definitely like to spend less time doing the editing, probably less time doing the filming because there's so much faff involved with it, and probably a lot more time on idea generation and on writing, because really I think my YouTube channel is going to grow through, I knew this at the time, like a YouTube channel grows through viral videos. Like generally normal videos, just like, keep it ticking along, but then you occasionally get a viral video and that causes a spike in absolutely everything. So if I could, generate more viral video ideas through idea generation, make them really good through writing, then filming would be easy. And potentially editing was something I didn't need to do at all because there was no real unfair advantage that we had in the editing department. I was not a video editor professionally. I was not already a filmmaker. So there was nothing particularly special about the edits. So that was the sort of thing that could have easily been outsourced. I also said I'd like to spend more time looking at the analytics, or potentially if someone else could look at the analytics for me, someone who understands data, because that would help feed into improving the videos overall and would also feed into idea generation. And so that's what mapping the system, mapping that process looks like for video production. I want to show you what it looks like for podcast production as well. So I'm going to use my podcast that I have with my brother, Not Overthinking, as an example here because it's a lot simpler than the one we have where we interview guests. And I suppose the first step of that is like logistics, arranging a time in the calendar for the two of us to actually sit down and record the podcast. Then we spend basically no time on idea generation at all. So we just go straight into filming. Then once it's filmed, we offload all the footage and then it goes into the editing stage, but the editing stage is very, very minimal. And then once it's edited, it goes to the publish stage. So again, I'm just keeping it very, very simple here. And then if I were to put the time numbers here, logistics takes sort of like a variable amount of time because it just depends on how much time we have each week. And as I'm saying this, I'm realizing, this is an aspect of the system that really could be improved. Filming takes somewhere sort of probably around 1 hour per week because a podcast lasts roughly an hour and it's fairly low friction to set up. We've optimized the process over time. Editing the podcast maybe takes 30 minutes per week. It used to take a lot longer, but then we found more efficiencies and more ways to improve the efficiency of our editing to the point where actually I edited a podcast the other day and it only took me about 5 minutes to actually edit a whole single podcast episode. And then publishing the episode would previously take around 20 minutes per week. But now we just hand it off to one of our team members who does it for us. And obviously that reduces the amount of personal time I'm inputting into it. And so basically anything that you're doing in your production process for whatever the content is that you're doing, you can break it down into a few different boxes and you can write down numbers for how much time you're putting into those things. So that is the first step of building a system. It's mapping it out in the first place. In the next lesson, we're going to expand this further and I'm going to talk you through how you can then optimize the system to make it more efficient. So please do try out the exercises down below in the interactive worksheety area. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next lesson.